So as the name of this video would suggest, I worked kind of for Elon Musk. I didn't actually work for him, so full disclosure, I was a temp working for a subcontractor that purchased work orders for SpaceX. So I was essentially working in partly in fabrication of cables and harnesses and stuff like that. I don't think I can talk too much about what I did or how I did it, um, but for the most part, I had to learn the aerospace manufacturing specifications for SpaceX, according to their own personal specs or whatever, and some NASA standards or whatever. It's really just grunt work. Um, you know, it's aerospace manufacturing. I technically worked on spaceship parts, but it's stuff that's, pretty low barrier to entry. You do still need to be competent and, troubleshooting or thinking with your head. You can't just, you know, go at it as you please. There are rules to it. But I only worked there for about 4 months. I worked there for about 4 months, and again for a subcontractor company. And I'd like to kind of get into this whole subcontractor idea because the job that I was doing for this subcontractor that purchased work from SpaceX. Where do I start? So it's aerospace manufacturing, working on spaceship parts, but it pays less than, working at Panda Express. So yes, I'm working on parts of a satellite or parts of a rocket, but I'm, not making that much. And part of that reason why is because I think um, the company that I was working for as a temp, uh, they they underbid on the purchase on the work orders that SpaceX is selling. That's just part of the free market, or whatever you want to say. Like, that's just the outsourcing of SpaceX production to another company, and that's where I worked, getting paid, fast food wages. Which, I'm not trying to dunk on fast food workers. I'm just saying I wasn't really getting paid very well, and it was hard just to make ends meet, working essentially for a company that works for Elon Musk. So I was kind of indirectly working for him, but not really. I know this title's a little clickbaity, but really it's not that far of a long shot. I was doing SpaceX work. I did have to learn SpaceX standards and specifications. I was working on SpaceX harnesses for cabling and all that wire assembly stuff. And I looked up on the SpaceX website how much do people make doing what I'm doing, but over in Hawthorne, California. What do people get paid doing what I'm doing right now? Because what I'm doing is also a job at SpaceX. And I see that people who do what I do, they make like 35 to 40 or $50 an hour. And what they need is either 2 years experience in a relevant field, or an associate's degree for, like, something relevant to the aerospace manufacturing, you know procedure, whatever. But I just thought that's like absurd that people make like double what I'm making working for Elon Musk directly, but in order to like up his production or lower his expenses, or basically expand his operations without having to onboard a whole crew, buy a different location, hire a manager for that location. He just sells the contracts to a subcontractor that which there are many aerospace subcontractors that buy work from Boeing or whoever, and they just keep lowering and lowering the bid until they say this is as low as we can go, and still, cover overhead and still make like a profit, but this is like as low as we can go. And because this is like the free market, people can just give out the work, underbid, and then you got guys like me who come into this line of work, barely getting enough to get by. Meanwhile, people that do what I do, over at the place that actually does this work or takes the orders that we make, they're making double. And it's just like, or at least like, you know, several dollars more than us. I think doing what I was doing could make you at starting, the starting figure was like $35 an hour. I was I was making, or 35 to 40. I was making like half that or less than half. So, and it wasn't glamorous work. It was it was hot in the factory. It was shitty, and I didn't want to go. But I showed up for the most part, and I did get let go over an attendance issue because I got sick. Excuse me. So I was a temp. So what ended up happening was I got the cold, and then I got COVID, and then I was out for too many days. I wasn't allowed to miss that many days because my hiring was like in a probationary period where my onboarding was, they were test driving me first before they offered me a job. But you know what? It wouldn't even really have been worth it because I was having trouble making ends meet anyways. And yeah, and even if I got hired on, there was like nothing at the end of there's no light at the end of the tunnel anyways. Because as soon as I get hired on, I'd be making the same thing. And in fact, something to mention with the subcontractors, that I was actually making 50 cents more than people that had been working there for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and were on the morning shift and had been there for way longer than me. But I made 50 cents more than them because I was on the night shift, because that was the only shift available to me. But it's just like crazy that I'm a newcomer walking into this new company making more than the people that are teaching me that have been there for so long. It's just wrong. It's wrong. It's just like wrong to treat your employees that way, to underpay them. I mean, I understand if you're a temp making as much as I was making, but to be making more than the other people that are training me right now, and then when I get hired on, I'm still going to be making the same wage. There was just no reason to stay. Granted, I would have liked to have held on to a job until I had a plan or moved on to something else. But really, it was just kind of disheartening to see that SpaceX paid like double or more for the job that I was doing. So when you work for a subcontractor, they just underbid. They all try to underbid each other until eventually someone's just gonna bite the bullet and say, "I'll charge the least," and still be up to specifications, still deliver a quality product. And they were growing. That aerospace company was growing too. But it just wasn't worth it. I didn't want to leave that job. I got let go. Like I said, I went over a threshold of how many days you could be absent. Again, this is just because it's just how it played out. I got sick too many times. I had the cold and blah blah blah, COVID. Some bean counter was just looking at someone that I never met, just said, "Oh, he went over the threshold. Let's just get rid of him." That's all it really was. It's just business. They're not looking at whether or not I was competent at my job, which I was. They were just looking at, is he here the amount of days we need him to be here in 4 months? So, anyways, that's more or less my story. It was hot. I was underpaid. It wasn't glamorous work, but I could do my job. But I did get bummed out when I saw that when I actually looked online for what people were actually getting paid for my line of work. It was just very disheartening. But that's just kind of the world we live in right now, where the accountability is just it's just thrown off any sort of corporation to be fair, or this subcontractor company was growing and expanding, and SpaceX was growing and expanding, But rather than SpaceX hiring people to, to grow, they just outsource a lot of their manufacturing to other companies. And by the way, this company that I worked for, this subcontractor, they had locations in other parts of other countries. So it wasn't just here in America. It was, in, I mean, I guess they had a location in Florida, but they were also located in like Hong Kong and Tijuana, or, I think they had a location in the Bahamas or something. I'm not exactly sure. But they were operating, overseas. They wasn't just an American company. It was a lot of foreign nations that they were operating in. And it's a shame. It really is. It's shameful. It's shameful that our country has allowed for these companies to just undershoot or underbid each other and take the lowest of the low for work. It just affects the bottom line. So that's why it's really wasn't that great working for a company that was working for Elon Musk. It wasn't glamorous work. And occasionally I did see a rocket go off in my patio and my front porch here. I have a neighbor who likes SpaceX, so he would always come knock on my door and tell me, "Hey, there's a rocket launch. Don't you want to see? That's what you're working on, right?" And when you're paid less than a fast food worker to work on rocket ships, you get a little, disenchanted with the whole, space exploration, spaceships. You don't really care anymore. You're just sort of thinking about, this isn't. Say what you want about outer space and that being a frontier that it excites people. When you're working on the rockets and you're having trouble just buying groceries, you're not really excited for those things anymore. I'm sure that people feel the same way about working at Disneyland or the movie theater. When you get paid peanuts to do these things, you just kind of stop caring. But anyways, I hope I didn't bum you out, or I don't know. I just hope you found this interesting, if anything. If nothing else, I hope you found the story interesting. And sorry about just ranting about my money. It's hard to not bring it back around my experience, because that's the only lens that I see it through. But yeah, that's my story of working for Elon Musk. So anyways, thanks for watching.